Welcome back. I'm Daniel Kasoy. We are United24 Media, and here's the latest news from Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky signed the much-anticipated bilateral security agreement between Ukraine and the United States during the G7 summit in Italy. The agreement creates a direct communication channel for military coordination between the U.S. and Ukraine. In the event of an armed attack or threat of an attack, senior officials from both countries will convene within 24 hours to strategize a response and determine the necessary supplies for Ukraine's defense.
A lasting peace for Ukraine must be underwritten by Ukraine's own ability to defend itself now and to deter future aggression anytime in the future. The United States is going to help ensure that Ukraine can do both, not by sending American troops to fight in Ukraine, but by providing weapons and ammunition, expanding intelligence sharing, continuing to train brave Ukrainian troops at bases in Europe and the United States.
The agreement has good provisions on weapons for our defense, whereas specifically on the Patriot systems, whereas specifically on the supply of fighter squadrons to Ukraine. That's right, plural. Squadrons, including but not limited to F-16s. We have worked for a long time for these.
Joe Biden also mentioned that for now, the U.S. has received commitments from 5 countries for Patriot batteries and other air defense systems for Ukraine.
We've let it be known to those countries that are expecting from us air defense systems in the future that they're going to have to wait. Everything we have is going to go to Ukraine until their needs are met.
President Zelensky and Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida have also signed a security agreement between the two nations. This year, Japan will provide Ukraine with $4.5 billion and will continue to support the country throughout the agreement's entire 10-year term. The leaders of the group of 7 countries, also known as the G7, have agreed to transfer 50 billion euros to Ukraine. They're using the interest accrued from frozen Russian assets within European banks. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz calls the plan historic.
This is a very strong commitment, which, by the way, gives the people of Ukraine the courage to do what is now necessary to defend their independence and their sovereignty. It is also a clear signal to the Russian president that he can't simply sit this thing out and hope that because of fiscal problems in some countries, which today support Ukraine, he will one day win this war. He will not.
Ukraine's forces have struck missile launch sites on Russian territory. This has helped reduce the number of attacks on Kharkiv, said the city's mayor Ihor Terikov. He underlined that the first week of June was calmer than in May, but in the last several days, the shelling has become more frequent.
It is very important to have weapons, very important to defend Ukraine and to defend the city of Kharkiv. A modern anti-aircraft defense system is a priority for us. It is an air defense system that will be able to shoot down everything that flies towards the city of Kharkiv.
Russians are not conducting active offensive actions in the north part of the Kharkiv region, and this is stated by the regional governor, Oleg Sinyahubov. However, they are trying to bring in reserves, reinforce, and regroup. Though the fighting continues in the area, it is less intense than it was at the start of the offensive.
Fighting is still ongoing in Vovchansk. Our defenders are trying to take up more advantageous tactical positions to conduct certain active actions. Assault operations are taking place in the Kupiansk axis. The soldiers are holding their positions, defending actively, and no losses of positions have been reported in the last 24 hours.
For the very first time, Russia has lost a Su-57 multi-role fighter, a 5th-generation fighter jet. According to the main Directorate of Intelligence of Ukraine, the Su-57 was destroyed at the Akhtubinsk airfield, located almost 600 kilometers from the front line of Ukraine, on June 8th. The destruction can be seen in a satellite image taken of the Russian airfield. The Su-57 is Russia's most advanced fighter jet, having only entered service in 2020. Estimates suggest that the Russian army has about 20 Su-57 aircraft, half of which are just prototypes. Russia can produce about 2 units annually. It is claimed that the aircraft cost around $35 million each. This week, Ukrainian forces also downed Russian Su-25 jet aircraft in the Pokrovsk direction. This is stated by the General Staff of the Armed Forces. However, they did not share any details about the operation. At the same time, the Russian media reported the crash of a Su-34 fighter bomber in the mountainous area of North Ossetia during a scheduled flight training. In the coming weeks, the armed forces of Ukraine will begin testing Ukrainian-made guided aerial bombs. In an interview with Radio Free Europe, General Serhiy Golubtsov, Chief of Aviation of the Air Force Command, said that Ukrainians are converting their current stockpile of unguided bombs.
There are some constructive nuances. You need to choose a wing, a GPS module, as well as a control module. In a few weeks, we should start the first tests of the first batches of such bombs made in Ukraine. Currently, we are using Western-made GBU-39, GBU-62 of various calibers.
Germany, together with its allies, are providing Ukraine with 100 missiles for the Patriot air defense systems. The German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius announced this at a joint press conference with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Pistorius recalled that he visited Odessa a few weeks ago, and he saw the consequences of Russian missile strikes with his own eyes.
Especially after seeing in Ukraine how crucial air defense is for survival, I have the pleasure of announcing the delivery of significant number of additional Patriot guided missiles. 132 of these guided missiles have already been delivered in the past few days, and the remaining missiles, 68, will follow in the coming weeks.
Together with Boris Pistorius, Volodymyr Zelensky visited the 21st Group of German Air Defense Forces in the city of Sinitz, where Ukrainian defenders are training to operate the Patriot air defense system. Zelensky mentioned that during this visit, he inspected the Patriot battery that will be transferred to Ukraine. He also met with Ukrainian soldiers currently training on the base. The Ukrainian Recovery Conference 2024 took place in Berlin. The event connected world leaders and international organizations. The key goal of this conference is to mobilize continued international support for recovery, reconstruction, reform, and the modernization of Ukraine.
United in defense, united in recovery, stronger together. That's what the motto of the Ukraine Recovery Conference sounded like this year.
Willkommen in Berlin. Slava Ukraini.
Germany is the third country to host the Ukraine Recovery Conference, which is dedicated to mobilizing international support for Ukrainian reconstruction. In previous years, it was held in the UK and Switzerland. Now in Berlin, the German Chancellor opened the event.
I would like to urge everyone gathered here today, support our initiative to strengthen Ukraine's air defense with everything that is possible.
Olaf Scholz underlined the reconstruction and modernization of Ukraine will require massive investments, and we will lobby for long-lasting commitments during the G7 summit in Apulia, Italy. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is also attending these events. Now in Berlin, he's talking about the problems Ukraine is facing because of the brutal Russian war.
Now, Ukraine is suffering from the most destructive form of Russia's vision of energy as a weapon. Russian missile and drone strikes have already destroyed 9 gigawatts of power. While Ukraine's peak energy consumption last winter was 18 gigawatts, half of it is now gone.
Zelensky mentioned that all the energy facilities that can be restored must be restored before winter. This year, Ukraine is planning to build 1 gigawatts worth of gas-fired energy generation. This summer, Ukraine will receive $3.4 billion in aid, stated EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
Around 1.5 billion euros from the windfall profits will become available in July. 90% of these funds will go to defense, 10% to reconstruction.
Ukraine has no other aim but peace. This is stated by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in German parliament. He visited the Bundestag after taking part in the Ukrainian Recovery Conference in Berlin. During his speech, Zelensky underlined that Europe will be a continent without war.
Do we have any other duty than to protect our people, our Europe, and rule-based international order? No. There are different aims, different dreams in Russia. It is one against everyone, against all of us. And that's why we all have to work together to make it change. And it is possible, because there are no walls that do not fall.
Russia launched a massive missile airstrike against Ukraine, targeting multiple Ukrainian regions with air and ground-based missiles, as well as attack drones in the early hours of June 12. While Ukraine was busy taking down suicide drones, Russia began launching ballistic missiles towards the capital. The city's military administration reported that all targets aimed at the capital were intercepted, though falling debris caused damage to a house, a gas station, and a garage in the region. An attack also caused a fire at an industrial site in the Kyiv region. On the same day, Russia launched a missile attack on a residential building in Kryvyi in the Dnipropetrovsk region, killing 9 people. More than 30 were injured, among them 5 children. This was reported by the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. Ukraine became the first country to create a new type of branch of the military, the Unmanned Systems Forces. It aims at supporting and developing units of unmanned systems, which include drones and robots. For now, though, the new branch will focus on supporting and strengthening the already existing units of unmanned systems.
We are starting to dictate the rules, and one of the first steps is to create a new type of force, the Unmanned Systems Force of Ukrainian Armed Forces.
Thanks to your actions, we can replace soldiers that are in trenches on the front lines with robots and unmanned systems on every level, in the skies, on land, and under the sea.
Unmanned ground vehicles, which serve a multitude of purposes, are being used in large numbers. They're used to evacuate the dead or wounded, as well as bring supplies to frontline positions. Some can be fitted with machine guns and used for assault. Here we have an exclusive look at how Ukrainian defenders are using one of the specific unmanned vehicles, the D-2111. Our colleague Philip Malzahn reports.
With the war becoming ever more deadly, robots like the D-2111 are set to provide some much-needed relief for the armed forces of Ukraine, where many soldiers are now well into their 3rd year of war. The advantages are clear. Where you would otherwise need a human to pull the trigger, the machine gunner can now assault the enemy remotely. But while assaulting is undoubtedly the most dangerous task, a close second is getting to and from positions even if they are under Ukrainian control. Russian FPV, artillery and mortar units are always looking for troops on rotation when they have to leave cover and move through the open. Unmanned ground vehicles like the D-2111 are supposed to ease all these tasks, from assisting assault units by providing fire support to bringing supplies, or by serving as an off-road taxi.
For the first time since the full-scale war, the Ukrainian military has successfully targeted a Russian digital radio relay station, the R-416GM. This was reported by operators of the 3rd Special Operations Forces Regiment who engaged the enemy communication station while working on one of the operational areas. During the strike, the Ukrainian army used an unnamed system described as one of the latest weapon developments. This week, Russia lost more anti-aircraft systems inside of Crimea. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported that none of the missiles sent to destroy the systems were intercepted by Russian air defense. The targets included a S-400 division near Zhenkoy and 2 S-300 divisions near Chornomorsk and Yevpatoria. Satellite images showing the results of the strike were released by Ukrainian journalists from the Schemes program. Ukrainian defenders targeted a Russian heavy flamethrower system, Solntsepyok. A video was released by the defenders of the 63rd Mechanized Brigade. It was struck several times by unmanned Ukrainian drones. German arms company Rheinmetall has agreed to cooperate with Ukraine in the manufacturing of the Lynx armored combat vehicle. The first one will be produced this year, said Ukraine's Minister of Strategic Industries Oleksandr Kamyshin. Details concerning the location of the plant and the quantity of output are undisclosed due to obvious security concerns. Earlier this week, Rheinmetall and the state-owned Ukrbrenprom company jointly opened a maintenance and repair center in western Ukraine that will produce and repair German-designed military equipment. Belarus has entered the second phase of nuclear drills with Russia, as confirmed by the nation's defense minister. He mentioned that the military is, and I quote, already acting proactively, systemically increasing readiness to use the so-called retaliatory weapons, end quote. Because of the aggressive language used by Western countries, however, he emphasized that Belarus has no intention of escalating tensions in regards to regional security. In May, Russia commenced its initial phase of drills involving non-strategic nuclear weapons, meaning the big ones. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the first stage of exercise involved Iskander and Kinzhal missiles. The Azov Battalion is now allowed to use weapons provided by the U.S. The U.S. has a long-standing policy prohibiting the provisions of military aid to foreign forces found committing significant human rights violations. According to the statement, the Department of State found no evidence of such violations. The State Department spokesperson didn't specify when the ban was lifted nor whether the weaponry had already reached Azov soldiers. A number of F-16 jets delivered to Ukraine by Western partners will be deployed to foreign air bases to prevent them from being targeted by Russian forces. Despite Ukraine having the necessary number of airfields for the F-16s, their defense will be a real challenge. According to the Chief of Aviation of the Air Force Command, the airfields need to be protected by at least 2 batteries of Patriot and NASAMS air defense systems to hit aerodynamic targets and protect the Patriot itself from enemy drones. Additionally, Gepard mobile air defense systems will be deployed as well. Cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns have increased ahead of the Summit on Peace for Ukraine. This was stated by Swiss President Viola Amherd during the press conference. The event is scheduled for this weekend. Amherd adds that 90 countries and organizations have already confirmed their participation.
The expectations for the conference are clear. We want to start a broad-based process with regard to a lasting and sustainable peace in Ukraine to create the conditions for a future peace summit with the participation of Russia. That will only succeed with the interaction of nations.
The first underground school in the Kharkiv region was opened in the town of Lubotin. Throughout the summer, students will study in alternating shifts to catch up on their education. Here, we see them meeting for the opening ceremony.
The last day was the day the full-scale invasion began, when we sent all the children back to their parents.
The full-scale Russian invasion began over 2 years ago. Many of the students are meeting their teachers and classmates for the first time. Some children are still abroad.
Gifted children from all over the Kharkiv region study in our school. Children who live in Kupiansk or Vovchansk.
When the 7th graders left school in February 2022, no one thought that the next time they would reunite would be at their 9th grade graduation ceremony.
I went to school at 6 in the morning, when nothing was clear. As soon as I got on the train, I was told that there was war. So I came to school, took all my things from the dormitory, and was taken home.
Everyone left, some went abroad, some stayed in Ukraine. We communicated via Telegram chats, but it's not the same.
Now, finally, children have the opportunity to get together, even though it's a few meters underground. This school in Lubotin is the first underground educational facility in the Kharkiv region. About 150 children can study here at one time.
It's really cool. When we saw that something like this was being built, we were so excited that our school had done this and that we could come here.
The teachers themselves don't use the term underground school. For them, it's an educational space. The large room where the event takes place can be divided into separate learning areas. There are also several smaller classrooms.
We will be working with these educational gaps that children went through in recent years for a long time. We try to study beyond the regular lessons, and thanks to this educational space that we have created, we are able to hold cases in this location.
The shelter has the highest level of security. Constructed underground, it features a heating, ventilation and water supply system, along with a diesel generator to safeguard against extended power outages and an elevator for accessibility.
I like it. I want to study. I don't want to study online or remotely. I want to study in the classroom.
This underground facility costs almost $2 million. During his visit, the regional governor, Oleg Senegubov, talked about plans to build similar shelters in 2 more districts of the region. This way, from the 1st of September, children could study both at school and remotely.
Full face-to-face education is impossible in this security situation, even if we were here to give lessons 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The important thing is that we don't neglect the children. When you see them on the screen, it has a completely different effect. Sometimes I tell the children, one day I will meet you on the street and maybe I won't recognize you. You won't recognize me either.
The only thing the school headmaster asks is to not film the school exterior. Located just a few kilometers from Kharkiv, this city understands the devastation that can happen from Russian shelling.
Another Russian Zala UAV was destroyed by Ukrainian forces. The aircraft was attempting to conduct a reconnaissance operation in the south of Ukraine. It was detected by border guards in the Odessa region. They quickly identified the Zala location and used an FPV drone to destroy the UAV in the air. Ukrainian forces used a drone to guide a woman who tried to escape from Russian occupation. According to the local Kherson Telegram channel, a Ukrainian drone operator spotted the woman walking across the damaged Antonovsky Bridge from the Russian-occupied town of Oleshki in the Kherson region. She waved her Ukrainian passport and was guided by the drone to the opposite side of the bridge, where soldiers safely transported her by boat back to Ukrainian-controlled territory. That's it for today. We're United24 Media. Thank you for being with us, and see you next time.